Hello and welcome to the League of Women Voters Dialogue with retired Colonel Felicia French, candidate for the Legislative District 6 House. And we are here today with the League of Women Voters Greater Verde Valley for a dialogue back and forth. We were attempting to have a forum with all of the candidates present, but we've had some scheduling difficulties. So we've decided to extend invitations to each of the candidates for a one-on-one dialogue. So welcome to you, Colonel French. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you. We would like to stick with a little bit of the same format where we are going to ask you to open up and tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll have a dialogue on some of the questions that have been presented to you previously, so you know what's coming, but they're mixed up in terms of their order, and hopefully we will have a conversation on this. So please let our audience know a little bit about you.
Well, my name is Felicia French, and I'm running for House of Representatives in Legislative District 6. Bobby Tyler is also running with me. You can vote for 2. And unfortunately, he is not feeling well today, and so he couldn't make it. But my background is I am a retired military officer. I spent 32 years in the U.S. military and the Arizona Army National Guard. I started as a 17-year-old private in Arizona National Guard, and then as a medic, and then I decided I wanted to go to nursing school as well, and so I became a nurse. At the same time, I was doing a reserve officer training course so I could become an officer, and I did that for a number of years, and then I also always wanted to fly, so I went to flight school. Took me 2 years to get in for various reasons. It was a hard thing to get into, not because of my inability to, but there weren't many women at that time in going to flight school. And then I did that, and my last assignment was Afghanistan, and I retired in 2010. And while I was in Afghanistan, I was a senior medical advisor. So I've been a nurse, a medevac helicopter pilot, a leader, a teacher. I also taught at community college. When I got back from Afghanistan, I decided to go to grad school, and I taught sustainable worlds and sustainable solutions at Mesa Community College. And then I volunteered for a number of the search and rescue, Civil Air Patrol, community emergency response team. And now I'm continuing my public service by running for House of Representatives and LD6.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. You mentioned that there weren't many women when you were trying to get into the helicopter program. That must have been an interesting challenge. Just so here's a good question to start off, because the League of Women Voters, one of the issues that's been very near and dear to our hearts is that of the Equal Rights Amendment. So we wanted to ask you if the state we're one state away from ratification of the ERA. So would you be voting to make Arizona the last state needed to ratify it?
Emphatically, yes.
Oh, that's great.
And the reason for that is the studies have shown that countries that have that within their constitution, equal rights for women, have much lower incidence of violence towards women. And that's been proven. So if we have that in our constitution, in our framework, I think we can help reduce the violence towards women. Just the perception of women's equality, if nothing else, is so important.
Certainly an important issue. What do you think are the top issues facing Arizona right now?
Well, without a doubt, education, public funding of public education is number one. We're 49th in the country as far as pay for teachers, graduation rates, class sizes, kind of across the board in measurements of education performance. And so I really think that is one of the major issues.
What do you think, how could you help LD6 residents, Legislative District 6 residents, have more opportunities for post-high school education?
Well, I think several things we need to do is look at our community colleges, our trade schools, as well as universities. And we need to properly fund all of them so that our children have choices to be, college isn't for everyone. So if we can emphasize the community colleges and trade schools, not only do we take care of getting our children choices and also the opportunity to stay in their location, their home towns, if they have some training in other areas, then also it stimulates our economy when we have an educated workforce.
Well, and there are so many different opportunities in education these days. What are your feelings about charter schools? What do you think of the advantages and the disadvantages?
I am for funding public education. in charter schools, I know there's some in Flagstaff that are public charter schools, but that being said, we need to make sure that the charter schools have the same regulatory guidelines that the public schools do. And right now, that's not the case in most charter schools. So we need to make sure of that. The other thing is, the other problem with many charter schools, are the private ones in particular, are that they are taking money away from the public schools and giving them to the charter schools. So basically, taxpayers, the average taxpayer, is funding somebody else's child's private education, and they don't have equal access. The students don't have equal access to go to those private charter schools. It's either done by lottery or some other means that's not always fair. So I'm not really in favor of private charter schools.
No. Education is certainly a hot issue here in Arizona, as well as water. Water is a big issue. We're expecting it's predicted that we're going to have a large population growth, specifically throughout the state, but specifically in the district that you're hoping to represent. So water conservation, reuse only goes so far. Right. What are your ideas on proposing a balance between the demand for growth as well as the need to have water accessible for everyone?
Yeah, there is already an Arizona Department of Water Resources in place, and they're with the Central Arizona Project. As well as ASU has been looking at this. A number of organizations are looking at working on this, and there is the Lower Basin Drought Contingency Plan Steering Committee, which there's a House of Representatives are on there, and that's something I would like to be a part of if I get into the legislature, as I win, because I think this is an extremely important issue. We can't just think about conserving. It's gone beyond that now. We don't forget to conserve. We need to continue that. But we do need to work with it. And the main thing is we need to get with all the stakeholders, the agricultural sector, the industrial sector, the developers, and the individual citizens as well, to discuss some of the solutions to this.
What other committees are you interested in working on when you get to the legislature?
Well, I believe there's 15 right now at the House, and there's about 5 that I'm very much interested in. I'd like to be on all of them, actually, but obviously I can't. But education would be number 1, and then environmental, and as well as healthcare and the veterans issues. Those are all areas that I have training in, I have experience in, and I'm profoundly interested in.
Certainly diverse. So Arizona, at its founding, was a progressive state related to residents' rights and citizen initiatives, being an active part of bringing forth laws or challenging laws. The current legislature has made it more difficult for citizens to file initiatives. What's your position on the citizens' initiative process?
I think that's true democracy. I think citizens should have a right to express what they want. If the legislator's not coming up with bills or propositions that 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 the people are interested in, they should have a right to say, hey, this is something we're interested in, this is what we want to do. And there's so many of them out there right now that we need to look at that aren't being addressed by the legislature. We need to listen to the people. If that's something they want, then we need to hear them.
What about the movement that's been for petitioning process specifically? Do you have any comments on that? The fact that petitions have become harder and harder to file?
And I understand that to some degree, that yes, we can't just have anybody going out there and petition. People are hired, and they're maybe not interested in what really is on the petition. They're just doing it to be hired. And there's some potential for somebody to put something forward that's very self-serving. But I think if you get enough people that are signing those petitions and they're going around there, there's a reason for them. The petition by its nature is, hey, there's something not right, there's something we want to change, and that's democracy. Hey, this is what we want to see done.
Well, the Arizona legislature as well doesn't like the federal government intervening in the regulations that it wants to bring forth, and state powers, yet the state preempts in many cases the powers of local municipalities. We've seen that in terms of passing any sort of plastic bag ordinances within the city of Bisbee as an example, or regulating short-term vacation rentals, such as in the case of Sedona and Scottsdale. What's your position on the trend of state preemption?
that again, democracy at the lowest level, the community level. In the legislative district 6, there's like 36 communities, and each one of them is slightly different. And so trying to look at what's good for Phoenix is not necessarily good for Pine, Strawberry, Payson, Flagstaff. And so their cities are different, the townships are different, so they should be able to have a say in what they do. Again, unless they're going to be more, they're draconian, like civil rights issues, banning, gays or lesbians or, anybody from being in some establishment, private or public establishment, then that's where I draw the line. But no, if they want to ban plastic bags, then they should have a right to ban plastic bags, and many other issues that they're coming up with, and that's sometimes how it gets spread. In California, it starts off in the city, then the county, and then the state, and then it spreads to other states. Then we get federal looks at these things, and that's how we change things.
You mentioned that there are 36 different communities within the LD6. How has it been going with you going around to all of them?
It's been fun, exhausting at times, but they're very remote. And I've been to places like just Tucson and Valet, and I'll go and look at my GPS and think there's a house out there, and there may be 10 trailers over a mile, and I'll like, okay, let me go for it. And dirt roads, and I've been camper canvassing with my daughter a lot. And we converted a cargo van into a camper, and we did it to go camping originally, but now it's been very useful to go out canvassing, because you have to stay places, instead of getting a hotel room, we just stay there, and it's kind of fun canvassing with my daughter, but very remote areas and different people from all walks of life.
Yes, yeah, it's a very, very different, very diverse area. In fact, it's so diverse. How do you think you can address the needs of such a diverse population?
I look at diversity as a strength, and I without a doubt believe that's what made our country great. It's our diversity. And why is all the other countries in the world, is still the U.S., even though we have great natural resources and whatnot, but our greatest natural resource is our people. And that diversity of our people, I believe, is what made us great and caused all those innovations with the differences of thought and cultures that came together to come up with so many neat ideas and neat technology. So I look at that diversity as a strength, and I try to expand on that by getting people to come to commonalities too, and then diverse ways of addressing the issues.
That's great that you point out, strength and diversity and our natural resources. We also have some challenges, such as Arizona is one of the top 10 states with the highest number of disenfranchised voters due to felonies. We actually have 221,000 estimated disenfranchised voters. So what would you do to address the issue of restoring felony voting rights?
Well, if the felony is for a non-violent offense, then and they've served their time, then I'm totally for them reinstating their right to vote. Because there's a lot of people in jail or serve time for non-violent felonies and for various drug possessions or whatever. And so I think they've served their time, they're non-violent, they should have a right to vote now. And also added to that is, minorities are disproportionately incarcerated for the same crime that a non-minority did. So I think it's a kind of a unintended or attended way of preventing them from voting, minorities from voting. So I really think we need to relook at that and reinstate nonviolent felons' right to vote.
Another area in which we face some challenges are in suicide rates. How many counties are there in?
There's four.
4 counties. Well, Yavapai County has the highest rate of suicide in the state of Arizona. And Arizona is among the top 10 states in suicide rates. As a legislator specifically, what could you do to address this?
Well, I think one of the main things we have to look at mental health, access to mental health providers and behavioral health providers, and because we are very short of them throughout the country, let alone in our state and county. So we need to look at that, and I think one of the things we can do is incentivize people to go to school for counseling, mental health counseling, and behavioral health, and by either giving them grants to go to school and then having them have to serve their time in these rural communities to pay back that tuition. The other thing is, I'm very concerned about as a veteran, soldier, the rate of suicides amongst soldiers, veterans is very high, as we probably are aware of it by now, and that concerns me deeply. So we definitely need to address that, and I think the first way of doing it is, of course, by providing mental health and behavioral health counseling and availability for that.
Are there organizations that you're interested in working with on that?
Well, social workers are a huge part of that, as addressing the issues and providing, as either providing or pointing to where a person can go that has a mental health crisis of some sort. And those organizations and the mental health providers, we need to make sure that we talk to them about how also what's a good way of getting addressing these issues.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about the economy. Arizona's economy is focused on growing more of our own talent. There have been some retention issues that the state has experienced. So how could you focus efforts on attracting outside talent and retaining our own homegrown talent?
Well, one of the things we need to look at is, again, back to the community college, trade schools, and affordable education at universities. So if we can get our children to be able to go to have those options and choices to go, then they can stay here and so we have that talent, keeping our own talent, as well as drawing in other talent. There's been corporations that have looked at Arizona to make their headquarters or build factories here or something in the past, and they didn't because their employees, they didn't want to move their families here because the public education system is on the bottom rung. So they look at it that way. I personally, when I was in the military traveling around, oftentimes when I decided where I was going to go, when you have a choice sometimes where you're going to go with your family, and I would not put in for states that the public education system wasn't very good. And I very much looked into that. In fact, when I was going to Washington, D.C., I was very, very concerned about my daughter at the time getting into a good education system there. And I personally have seen it, so I know other families are looking at that too when they make that decision to come to a state.
What about housing options? Do you see that as a barrier toward attracting people and to retaining people as well?
Yes, without a doubt, because if you can't afford to live on the salary in a home where you're on rent, where you're trying to relocate to, then they're not going to come here. They're going to be less incentives to do that. They're going to say, well, why the cost of living is too high here for us to live comfortably, so they're not going to move here. So we need those to go hand in hand, the public education, housing, as well as the salaries.
What about community colleges? We have a very diverse network of community colleges throughout the state. What about housing options for community college students? Do you think those should be available?
I would like to see that. I think so, especially like in our rural area. We have, like I said, the 36 townships. We have some so rural areas, and they might want to go to a community college, but there's no place to live, so they can't. So they either have to go to university if they can afford it, and they still have to find housing there as well. But the community colleges, I think it would be really it would benefit us all if we could somehow give affordable housing for them, a dorm type setting for them to come, especially like on the Native American reservations. They're very far removed from some of these community colleges, and that would be an option for them to be able to live there and then on the weekends go home if they could.
College access to education, also access to health care is a challenge in our state. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, it definitely is. I see in my small community of Pine, we have a large retiree population and senior citizens, and when they get ill, when they first retire there, they're middle-aged, they're fine, healthy for the most part, but as they age, they have some problems and they can't see specialists there, so they either have to commute down to the valley 2+ hours to even go to a normal appointment. So one of the things we need to look at is healthcare, emergency care in the rural areas, medevac, because as a medevac helicopter, I'm very much a proponent of that, to get them to definitive emergency care in a timely manner, as well as telemedicine. We need to look at that as an option rather than them having to drive all the way to their doctor's office when they have some illness. They might be able to just do a telemedicine thing where the doctors can look and see. So we need, those are some ideas, as well as more nurse practitioners and physician assistants in the rural areas, so that we have more healthcare providers available to the rural areas.
All right. You mentioned, so especially for retirees, that access to health care can be challenging. What else do you see as challenges for the retirees in our state?
social isolation is quite, I was reading somewhere where it stated that that's one, like almost the #1 determinant of how long you're going to live or not, and quality of life. More and more people are living longer, for one, which is great, that's a good thing, but they're also disengaged. Their children, less children, they go away, their children move, and less children are having children. Their kids are not having their grandchildren, so they're kind of isolated. So I think it's really important that we focus on that communities and help each other out and try and have more community activities and things in the rural areas, especially for our elderly.
Yeah, very good. What about social centers?
That would be great, yes. And we can do combined community centers that for youth too, the youth that are there, they can after school programs there as well as senior programs for them, and combine those together. And that's really, in the rural areas, that's really important, because you don't need to build a bunch of buildings for that. You just need like one structure for that, and they can multi-use community centers.
A lot of those centers are sponsored by local municipalities and local nonprofit organizations. What do you think would be the state's role?
I think the state should be involved in it, because it is a community effort, and it would help because not all the communities can afford these type of centers to build them. So if the state could chip in and help with those, because it's a win-win. You're helping the youth, you're helping the elderly, and you could do things like also getting meals to some of the elderly is hard. Meals on Wheels isn't available everywhere, and we can do cooking centers in those community centers. And then they can teach the youth how to cook. You know, the teenagers that after school programs with them, and it ties them together.
You raise something that brings us to an issue of food insecurity. Yeah. There are too many Arizonans facing food insecurity, and among them a lot of youth. Yeah. A child goes to school and may be in a program to get a lunch or a breakfast, right. But what happens on the weekends?
Right, that is a problem, and it's sad that children shouldn't be penalized because of their parents, where they live, their zip code, or anything like that. And it's without a doubt, it's been proven from a medical standpoint that children that do not have proper nutrition from a young age, their brains don't develop as properly as they could. So their potential is not going to be reached if they don't have that proper nourishment. And so it's important that we make sure that they have that. So we have to identify that first. That's why it's so important to have the social workers engaged as well, and availability of them, and the nutrition available for the children. That's why it's also important that we have nurses in every grade, every school, as well as mental health providers, so they can identify those issues of malnourishment.
Right. Well, there certainly seem to be a lot of challenges, and as you said, there's also a lot of resources and grants. So, what's your approach to problem solving?
I love to get everyone involved, the stakeholders is what we call it, and because you never want to do something unilaterally, because for one thing, you don't get all the information that you need to solve a problem, and secondly, you don't get as much buy-in to the solutions. So if you do a stakeholder type workshop when you have an issue in a community, you get more people's input, diverse ideas and solutions, and I also like to look for the win-win solution. Somebody doesn't necessarily have to lose for somebody to win. I really think we can all win if we take our time and look at the issues and multiple solutions. Oftentimes we like to just do one thing, size fits all, and it doesn't. We forget there's unintended consequences, and often negative unintended consequences if we just use one aspect of a solution and not look at all of it.
Right. Yes, unintended consequences. Part of why the saying goes that government moves at the rate of a narcoleptic snail. I believe it was a local mayor that I can credit with that quote. What do you think? What do you think would be the challenges when you're in the legislature, working with your colleagues, working across party lines, trying to move things along in a quick fashion? What do you see as the tools that you bring to that process?
I think I have a diverse background of all the areas I've trained in. Like I said, education, sustainable solutions background. I'm a mother, healthcare, so many diverse in my military background. I worked with coalition forces when I was in Afghanistan and throughout my military career from different countries, working with those people, as well as I had mediation training and conflict resolution training in the military, and I was an equal opportunity officer for the Arizona State National Guard, and I'm used to working with diversity, and different people from different walks of life. And I actually find it challenging. That's the fun part of it. Sometimes it's also the part that just scream about. But I really think most of us want to do this. We have our hearts are good. We want the same things. We want public education for all our children. We want quality education. We want to be able to feed our children. We want health care for everyone. It's just the solutions to them, how we're going to fund it. And that's where we have to work together to do that. And I really feel like getting in the House I can work with across the aisle. Throughout my canvassing, I've talked to people from all the parties, and oftentimes the Republican sides people will say, hey, we don't want to talk to you, we're not interested, and then I'll just start engaging them on something. Well, what's one of your concerns? And then education is usually the first thing that comes up. So we'll talk about that, and they'll say, well, yeah, I agree with you. And then we'll talk about health care or whatever, or veterans issues. And the commonalities, they're surprised that, hey, I'm not some extreme person here trying to take everybody's money away to fix the problems and just throw money at it. So I think that helps, showing that you're willing to listen to their issues and work with them.
You said that in your canvassing that you're coming across what you hear the most from people are education issues. What's number 2 and number 3?
I would say healthcare, definitely affordable and accessible healthcare for everyone. And the third one, kind of a close tie with local control, environmental issues. Those are the two. And another third one is common sense gun laws.
Okay. Well, what are your thoughts on those?
The local control we talked about. Right. I do think the other environmental issues, definitely as a sustainability, I went to school for sustainable solutions, and I think the economic, social, and environmental issues are all wrapped together. They all overlap, and so we need to make sure we look at the environment, because if we destroy the environment, we're not going to have clean air and water to drink or breathe. And also, those are our resources for our economy. So we have to look at it from that perspective. And of course, then the responsible gun ownership, that's always a very tough topic for people to talk about because of the Second Amendment. But as a military veteran in Afghanistan, I saw firsthand the effects of military assault weapons, what they do to a human body. And I do not believe they should be in the hands of civilians. They should only be used in a war zone. And so I'm against that. I'm also for waiting periods for purchasing weapons. I'm also for registration periods. I'm also against the multiple rounds of magazines, Teflon-coated bullets, armor-piercing bullets. And I think we should have gun safes in your home. The bottom line is it takes more to get a driver's license than it does to buy a gun in the United States, and that's crazy. It even took me more to be able to fire a weapon in the military. I had to go through more hoops than a civilian does to get a gun on the outside. So it's ironic.
It's interesting that you have a literally hands-on experience with it that you bring to the table. Well, you certainly seem to have hands-on experience in a wide variety of areas, and do you want to give us some statements on that and give us a couple of closing remarks?
Yes. Well, I feel like those are my strengths. That having all the experience in so many different areas, having the advantage of traveling to over 30 countries and seeing what works and what doesn't work in certain areas. I'm a good critical thinker, and I'm a solutions-oriented person, and I look for the win-win. So I really feel like that is going to be a strength, bringing it into as a legislator, working with other people. And I think it's imperative that we have other people that feel that way and representing us. And so that's why I really think I'm a very good candidate to represent our citizens here in my district.
Well, we certainly hope that the citizens are watching this program and have heard from you. And you're probably accessible for questions that people may have. Or is there a way to reach you? Is there a website? Or
Yes, I do have a website. It's FeliciaFrench.com, www.FeliciaFrench.com. I have a website there, and I have my platform issues on there, and you can email me and ask me any questions. and I'd be happy to answer them.
Well, I really want to thank Verde Valley TV and Yavapai Broadcasting Studios for having us here today and facilitating this dialogue. The League of Women Voters, we are committed to voter registration, voter education, and voter empowerment. And these dialogues, forums that we hold with candidates and dialogues that we hold with candidates are trying to help you, the voters, meet and know who these candidates are. And we urge you to come out and vote on Election Day, November 6th. The last day to register to change your party registration or update your address is October 9th. Early voting ballots will be mailed out beginning October 10th, and completed ballots can be returned by mail or dropped off at local vote centers in your town and city. We also want to mention that the League of Women Voters has an easy guide to state ballot measures. You can access that at azballotguide.com to download a copy or read it online. So again, we want to thank retired Colonel Felicia French for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Kathy.
And urge you to get in touch with her with any other questions that you may have. I want to thank Mary Gazaway from the League of Women Voters Board, who was here in the studio helping us out today. And again, thanks so much to Verde Valley TV and Yavapai Broadcasting. Hi, I'm Kathy Kinsella. I'm the president of the League of Women Voters, Greater Verde Valley, and I'm sitting here with Mr. Walt Blackman, who is running for the state legislature in District 6. District 6 is an enormous district. Mr.
Yes,
Blackman, how are you enjoying the campaign trail?
Great. We're having a great time. We're able to meet a lot of folks. Of course, it's a large district, one of the larger districts in Arizona. We have about 165 people populating our district, and that spans the 4 counties, of course, of Navajo, Yavapai, Coconino, Gila, and so it's a pretty huge district. And
you're a first-time candidate, right?
I am a first-time candidate.
So you're wearing out your shoes?
Yeah, they're about to wear out. So but we're having a great time traveling the district and meeting a lot of people and focusing on some of those issues that are in the district. So
you're meeting all these people. What are they saying? What are you hearing from them? What's on their minds, and what are you pinpointing as the largest issues that are of concern?
Well, of course, up in Navajo County, one of the larger issues are the opiate issues up there. Of course, we have education to deal with health care, child welfare issues that are going on in the states. So each district is different, if you will, in the issues that they are facing. And there's a combination of folks just, they want real leadership, they want real representation for their neck of the woods. And that's what we're here to do, and with Team Blackman as we move forward to be the representative for these folks. What
have you identified as some of your key platform issues?
Well, our key platform is education, of course, because when we're looking at education, the funding formula is one of the key issues that we saw that was wrong with how we are funding education. Last year, the budget for education was $4.2 billion out of a $9 billion budget. Now, that's almost half of the budget. So we are allocating the proper money to go to budget, and with the 20 for 20 that the governor allocated, that addresses the teachers' needs when we're getting the pay, which they deserve a huge amount of money, but we haven't addressed in that 20 for 20, how are we going to pay for support staff and the infrastructure, the brick and mortar of it, and that's what we need to get down to.
Well, sticking with education is an issue. What do you see as the advantages and disadvantages of charter schools? What about the control of charter schools within the state establishment? What do you feel is appropriate?
Well, I think that in order for our children to be competitive, not only in the United States but globally, we need to have a parent choice when we want to send our kids to school. So I am for parent choice. where they can send our kids to school. So the advantages of sending your kid to a charter school, I believe, is you don't have to be tied with Common Core, and I think Common Core is a downfall to our education system. For example, a lot of folks believe that when a child comes out of school, that everything should be fair and equal across the board. The reality of it isn't. It isn't. Our kids have to be able to compete with kids in Japan or be able to compete with kids in Italy or in Germany. And Common Core just doesn't do that because it does not allow the teachers to teach with creativity and how they are able to teach. They are tied to a series of tests that they have to teach to. And we're not giving the teachers the flexibility with Common Core to do that.
Right. When you're talking about some of the pressures on students, a lot of pressure on young people and residents all over Arizona. Arizona's among the top 10 states for suicide rates. And Yavapai County is the highest rates in Arizona. So as a legislator, what would you do to address this issue?
We have to get prevention and education. A lot of times with suicide, it's that dark corner that we don't see around, and with education and making sure that not just the families that are at risk understand the threat of this, but making sure that in our schools and in our organizations and our businesses that we teach prevention of suicide awareness. Now, being in the military for 21 years, that is something that we actually did every year, is we had suicide prevention awareness training. And I think that we need to do more of that. And of course, with cyberbullying, that kind of ups that issue with suicide, and we just need to get a hold of that a little better and educate everyone, not just the victims, but everyone on the effects of it.
You mentioned that you were in the military. Can you tell us a little bit more about your background? Military, what branch, what rank, and what else have you done? What's your professional life?
Okay, well, of course, again, this is my first time running. And for 21 years, I was in the military, active duty, no guard time or no reserve time, just straight to going to work every day. For 21 years in the United States military, deployed several times, deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. And my job was tank commander. And I commanded a platoon of tanks, and as a first sergeant commanded a company of tanks with 16 tanks, if you would, in that realm. And I had a lot of positions that I held in the military, a lot of leadership positions, and I've been placed in challenging situations while I was in the military. And I had an opportunity not only to work with other American soldiers and leaders, but also our NATO counterparts. So I have the experience of working internationally with folks and with international leaders to get things done. And of course, through all that, the deployments do come up. I am a recipient of the Bronze Star Medal, which I received for combat actions in Iraq, and did several peacekeeping missions to Kosovo, Bosnia, and did the tour, if you would, around the world. Spent time in Germany with my family. And I also come from a military family. My dad spent 26 years in the United States Air Force. And so we have a military background in our family.
We all bring our personal experiences to problem solving. So tell me, what is your problem solving approach? It's such a diverse state, such your district, as you described it before. It's enormous. It's very diverse in its population. So how would you work with all the different communities that are part of the Legislative District 6 to approach the issues that are important to our state?
Well, first of all, a leader has to get on the ground and find out what's going on. If you're not on the ground talking to people, if you're not talking to that end-level user, then you're not going to be able to assess the issue. And that's one of the first things that, as what I learned as a leader, is to assess the situation or assess the battlefield, if you would. And being able to do that, you can paint a real good picture of the particular demographic or area of the district that needs that particular help. And we do that in our campaign, Team Blackman, by getting on the ground. We talk to about 100 people a day. We hold town halls. We talk to sheriffs. We talk to law enforcement. We talk to teachers. We talk to students. We talk to voters. And we get a real good assessment of what's going on. on. Whether it's in Navajo County, or whether it's in Yapapai, or whether it's in Coconino or Gila, we get that assessment. And then we also go to groups. And outside of our comfort zone, if you would, I am a constitutionalist conservative, which makes me run on I'm on the Republican ticket. So we go outside our comfort zone and talk to libertarians or independent voters, and then also Democrat voters also, to find out what's going on and how we can contribute and to make lives better.
You made me think of something that, just talking about government and how it works and describing yourself as a constitutionalist. The state of Arizona does not like the federal government to preempt state powers, yet the state of Arizona often preempts powers of local municipalities. We have the example of plastic bags in Bisbee. We have the example of short-term rentals in Sedona. What do you think about that? What's your position on this trend of the state preemption of local powers, local control?
Well, we got to practice what we preach. I am a constitutionalist conservative, and I look at the state of Arizona as a sovereign state. Just like we don't want the federal government to encroach on what we do within our state, we need to make sure that we don't do the same thing at the municipal or towns or cities. We don't do what we don't want to happen to us from the federal government. However, with that, there's a caveat with that. As long as the Constitution is being followed by those municipal and cities and towns. Just like we have to follow the Constitution within the state, not to violate someone's constitutional rights. So as long as we're not doing that, as long as municipalities aren't violating someone's constitutional rights, and I don't think that we have a right to interfere what a municipality does.
Arizona, at its founding, was a progressive state related to residents' rights to file initiatives on the ballot, and the current legislature seems to want to make it more difficult for citizen initiatives. What do you think about that?
Well, that can be good, or that can be good and bad. Initiatives often come into fact when when legislators are not doing their job, or if a particular initiative needs to be passed and things aren't working. We know as initiatives, that goes into the Constitution. And when that is embedded in the Constitution, it may be a bad initiative for 99% of the other population, but 1% of that population feels that it is good. But if it passes, then that goes into the Constitution. That is something very difficult to change. How we fix that is legislators have to do their jobs. How they do their jobs is that the voters hold them accountable, so we don't have to move into the citizens' initiatives. So.
Okay. There are a number of ballot propositions that are facing voters. Do you have positions on 5 of the statewide ballot
I have
issues?
A position on particularly 127. We're talking about the solar initiative. Listen, you know, I have 5 children and 2 of them are still at home, and they like to leave the doors open and the lights on. My electricity bill is already high. So when we're looking at that initiatives that is being pushed out of California, Tom Steyer, and I'm sorry, 126 and 127, and they're talking about making our electric rates half of what they are now. So if I'm paying $300 a month, there's a potential that I could be paying up towards $600 a month. Okay, 40% of a person's income, an average income, is going towards electricity already. If that thing if it goes half of that, we're talking more than 40%, and people aren't going to be able to pay their electricity. I think we can do better than that. We do not. I don't think we need outside folks or outside initiatives, if you would, to change the way we do business in Arizona. And that's one of the big ones that I'm looking at, that I think that we need to vote no on that thing, because it's going to affect people. It's going to affect a person making that minimum dollar to take care of themselves. So at the end of the day, it's about keeping more money in our pocket, okay, and not caving to big business. And it's a good name on it, you know. Clean energy, or clean air for Arizona.
Requires 50% of the energy to come from renewable resources by the year 2030.
Yeah. And also, who's got to pay for the infrastructure to set that up? The infrastructure is not even set up. So taxpayers are going to have to pay that. So we're not taking account of the additional cost that it's going to take to pay for that proposition. And that's something that is not being broadcasted out. And with education and being aware, I think that voters are smart enough to know when they are being hoodwinked.
We were talking before about citizens' initiatives, though, and one of the things that came forward in our state via a citizens' initiative was the establishment of the Elections Commission. Mm-hmm. Now, there's Proposition 306, mm-hmm. which it wants to amend that and actually take the regulatory controls away from the independent commission and put it under the governor's office. Whether the governor is Democrat or Republican, mm-hmm. either way, that office would then be overseeing that commission. What are your thoughts on that? I
believe that that's the right move, because when we're looking at the commission, the governor's office is one that, of course, it's the executive office, and that's an office that will be able to mandate some of those laws, if you would, that are probably not going to benefit the majority of the people in the state of Arizona. And it's important that we have some sort of mechanism to mitigate bad laws or bad propositions.
We spoke before about energy, so we should probably talk about water. It's predicted that your district that you're running to represent, Legislative District 6, will be having a large population growth. Recognizing that conservation and use of water can only go so far, how do you see balancing the demand for growth against the need not to outrun our water supply?
Well, that is a big concern for northern Arizona, particularly where I'm living at. And we have to be able to balance that. And how we balance that is being able to create jobs, okay, that will support the revenue, that will support the water issues that we have. Now, the governor, of course, has put out a new initiative to kind of mitigate some of the issues with our water sources, and we have to be responsible users at the end level also. And when we're talking about the population growth that's coming into Arizona, we're getting a lot of folks in here. We just have to make sure that we're mindful of how we are balancing where folks are living. Now, we can't force a person to live in a certain place. However, jobs kind of dictate where a person is going to move to. So traditionally, a lot more folks are moving down to the Phoenix area, and so we just have to make sure we're balancing that in a way that's going to help Arizona.
Well, talking about jobs, what do you think can be done to assure that all the residents of LD6 have opportunities for post-high school education, therefore a path to jobs?
Yeah. Well, that aligns with what we're trying to do for education. We're talking about funding for education. For example, I met with a group of high school students during the primary, and their biggest concern is that there was a lack of AP classes in the district where actually the school, the city that I live in. And those kids use those AP classes to get in college, to gain college credits, and to be able to move forward. So what I want to do is I want to do partnerships and internships with local businesses in and around the district. For example, if you had a kid that was interested in law, that they do an internship in that senior year with a law firm. If you have a kid that wants to be in construction, and they do an internship with a construction business, so they're learning that trade, and they are also learning how to work outside of school, be responsible, be accountable. And I also want to institute ROTC back into a lot of the schools up in the 6th district, and that's Reserve Officer Training Corps. Mm-hmm. And that's an opportunity for young people to enter the military after 3 to 4 years in this program, with the possibility of a higher rank when they go into the military. It doesn't matter what branch they go into, or the option to compete for college ROTC scholarships that will pay for 3 to 4 years of college opportunity. And then they go back and they repay that by serving their country in the military. So we can do some things. We can step forward to try to mitigate some of those issues and create future jobs in the district also.
What about outside talent, attracting outside talent to Arizona?
Well, we have to be able to do that too, and that's when we bring in businesses. For example, when we're bringing in a business from California, because we've seen an influx of businesses coming from California, and a lot of that is the tech industry that's coming from California into Arizona. Now, where I am from, we don't get a lot of that because it's going down to Maricopa County. So what we need to do, first of all, is we need to look at our infrastructure to be able to support that outside talent. Now, how we do that is we need to improve our internet infrastructure, because businesses cannot operate without adequate internet. If we can fix our internet infrastructure, then we can attract large organizations to set up shop in northern Arizona. Okay, we're talking in those counties that I represent, which will bring that talent out here and facilitate the need for us to grow and to generate revenue. Now, it's also the folks that are trying to get some of these jobs. They have to be re-educated, some of them, because we have to get smart too on these new jobs that are coming in, and then it allows opportunity for people who live in these other states to actually move into our state, and that'll increase revenue also. So there's a lot of things that we need to do to be able to attract that outside business or outside source. You
mentioned technology. What other industries do you think are growing industries in Arizona specifically?
Well, technology is number one, because that's leading from the front. Up there where I'm from, we're talking about folks that can work in forestry. We're talking about construction. We're talking about just basic infrastructure kind of organizations. I have a buddy that works in concrete. So what he has to do when he is running his business is he has to take a lot of his business out of state. So what we need to do is we need to create opportunities for him to be able to keep his business in state, so he can create jobs in the area, create revenue, and continue to build our economy within Arizona. And we can do that if we are deregulating some of the issues that small business owners have to go through in Arizona, and if we are allowing folks the opportunity to grow their businesses or small businesses. And that's what I want to do when I come in office.
We've had some voting issues as well in Arizona. In 2016, Arizona was in the top. Arizona was the top 10 states with the highest number of disenfranchised voters due to felonies. There are about 220,000 plus people who have not had their right to vote restored. What would you do to address the issue of restoring felony voting rights in our state?
Well, first of all, these folks broke the law. Okay, we have to understand that. Now, I understand that I've talked to some folks that can't vote because they have felonies and they haven't been restored. I think that they have paid their debt to society after they have finished their prison term or whatever consequence that the state gives them. Now, we can't automatically, when a person has a felony and they get out of prison, I don't think it's right to automatically reinstate voting rights to these people. I think there has to be a timeline that we lay out to some of these folks that want to get their voting rights reestablished. So, in that timeline, are they? Well, first of all, did they repay their total debt to society? Did they really do that? When they get out, are they having problems still? Are they being recalled because of probation or parole issues? Are they making sure that they are following the law within a timeline, I don't know, 2 to 3 years? Okay, and after that 2 to 3 years, if they are crime-free, if you would, and they are following the laws of the land, and then we work to restore those rights. But if we do it right when they get out of prison or wherever situation they were coming from that caused them to be felons, I don't think that that's the way to go. So we need to gradually move them back into giving them the right to vote.
So voting rights. From another angle, the Equal Rights Amendment is one state away from ratification. I say this because the League of Women Voters obviously cares very much about voting rights for women and equal rights for women. So it's one state away. Would you vote to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment in Arizona as the last state needed to ratify it?
Well, I believe equal rights is intended for everyone. regardless of a person's ethnic background or their gender or their religious beliefs. That's what this country is built on. So yes, I would vote to be able to make sure that everyone has equal rights within that. However, as long as we are following the Constitution and the law of the land, that's what we need to do. We can't say that a certain group has equal rights and another group does not. That's not what the framers built our country on, and that's not what we stand for as Americans. And in order for us to show respect and dignity for everyone, then we need to be able to not only talk the talk, we got to walk the walk.
So you would vote to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment?
I sure would. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The campaign trail is a very interesting place. Do you have a favorite story from the campaign trail so far? Somebody memorable that sticks out in your?
Well, yeah. Well, I do. I have a lot of them. But the one thing that I really get asked about is a lot of folks think that I should be a Democrat because I have a tan, if you would, and that's just a misconception in this part of the country, particularly from where I'm from. There are not a lot of Black Americans that are running, number one, and there are not a lot of Black Americans that are conservative. The Black American population in Flagstaff, for example, or actually in the 6th District is 1%. We're talking just a little bit over 1,200 just in Flagstaff. So there are not a lot of conservative Black Americans walking around. So I typically get mistaken as a person who is a Democrat, which is, and I'm not saying anything wrong with a person who is a Democrat. I'm just saying sometimes I get mistaken, and I have to let folks know at the beginning of the conversation that no, I'm actually not only just a Republican, I'm a constitutionalist conservative, and that kind of puts people back on their heels. But at the end of the day, we all want the same things. We all want the same things for our children. We want clean air, we want good schools, and we want to be able to live in a safe environment. And I don't think it matters on what side of the aisle you're from. We want those things, and we want an America and a state that we can live in and be free, and we can have peace, and we can get along with civil discourse.
We have just a few minutes left. Is there a closing statement? What's the main thing you want the voters to know about you?
Well, I want the voters to do their research. It's important that folks actually do their homework about the candidates that they are voting for. That's important. And also do research on the propositions that are out there. The propositions affect all of us, whether you have an R behind your name or a D or an I or you're a libertarian. They affect all of us. And at the end of the day, if we are not doing our homework, then we're going to just hurt ourselves. The second thing that I want to tell folks is that the midterm elections 2018 is very important. As you know, our country is pretty well divided right now because of the things that are going on at the national level, things that are going on overseas, and just in general. So this is an opportunity for us to bring to kind of close that gap, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. It's time for real leadership to be restored, not only in our state when we're talking about our local levels, our local elections, but also when we're talking federally. We need real leadership, and we need folks that really care about this country. And there's a lot of people out there who do on both sides of the aisle. What I would ask folks to do is take a real good look at me. I'm a combat veteran. I've served this country for 21 years. I've worked very hard to obtain the position that I am. I do love this country, and I do love the way that we are a free country and a free-thinking people. And I am ready to serve the people of the 6th District, all 165,000, and I'm able to do it in a way that will bring leadership and dignity and respect to all.
Well, I want to thank you very much for your time here today, and I wish you happy trails on that campaign path. I want to remind everybody that's watching that Election Day is less than a month away, November 6th, and the last day to register to vote or change your party registration or update your address is October 9th. Mail-out ballots will start going out on the 10th. You should be getting them in your mailboxes. We urge everybody to turn back their ballots very quickly quickly. We do not want anybody disenfranchised. We don't want ballots coming in late. So please, when you get that ballot, send it in right away. We also, the League of Women Voters has an easy guide to state ballot measures. You can go to azballotguide.com. Again, that is azballotguide.com to download a copy or read online. Again, there are 5 statewide ballot propositions that will be in front of voters. There's information on all 5 of them in that ballot guide, as well as pay attention to your ballot. Localities usually have ballot initiatives that are unique to those municipalities. Pay attention to the ballot. Vote from the bottom up. We know that there's drop-off. People vote for the races that they're most familiar with. We all know that there's a governor's race. We all know that there is a U.S. Senate race. There might be an override budget for your local school district. There might be a fire board race in your area. Please pay attention to that. And if your question did not get asked, you know, we can make ourselves available. Do you have a website, a way voters can contact you?
I do. Blackman for AZ at .com, and we also have our Facebook at Still Fighting for America. And actually, if somebody has a question for me, they can instant message us, and I will answer those messages within 24 hours.
Great. And the League of Women Voters, Greater Verde Valley, we have a number of different programs I just want to remind people of. We have discussions, monthly philosophy and politics that covers different topics. We have our Let's Talk Politics morning gathering where we talk about current events. We have a book club. We have a movie club. Please get in touch with us at the League of Women Voters, Greater Verde Valley. Our annual meeting will be happening on November 15th. That's after the election, and we'll be talking about election trends specifically. Did the predictions hold true? What trending do we see emerging? So that is, you can get in touch with me at 917-846-3827 if you have any questions about that. Again, thanks to Walt Blackman, who is running for the state legislator in District 6 from the town of Snowflake, first-time candidate who spent his time here with us today. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Kathy Kinsella, the president of the League of Women Voters, Greater Verde Valley, and I'm sitting here with Bobby Tyler. Bobby Tyler is a candidate for Legislative District 6 House, and welcome to you.
Well, thank you, Ms. Kathy. Thank you for inviting me here to Cottonwood. A little bit on the nervous side, but I look forward to being here today.
So, Bobby, I know you're the mayor of Holbrook. And you were on the council, I think, before that. So how have you been finding elected office?
I've been finding elected office. I've been finding it quite challenging, Kathy, to be honest, because when you grow up in a community, you see your community moving forward, and your everyday activities just keep on going, and you don't know about all the nuts and bolts and all the things that are down into the weeds. And so once I got involved in politics, local politics, then you start seeing the different aspects of your community, and so it's been a very good eye opener for a small community.
And how's the campaign trail going?
Campaign trail is going pretty good. It's been very challenging because when you look at the size of our district, it takes about 2 days to really travel your district. But the thing that I've been finding out about the districts, it goes back to our rural area and our small communities. Finding out that there's a lot of things that are going on that are concerning a lot of the communities.
It's a very diverse community as well. As you said, it has a wide geographic area and a lot of different people. What are you finding as people are speaking with you? What are you finding is top on their minds?
Some of the top things are on a lot of the people across the district mind, of course, is education. Education being the number one, because when you look at rural Arizona, education is the key for not only for us, for our youth. Education has been the number one. Also been following up on it after education, of course, is healthcare, jobs, and also our environment, renewables.
Okay. So speaking of education, so Residents of LD6 have had some challenges, geographic and otherwise, you know, finding education opportunities. What would you do to make sure that opportunities for post-high school education are available to all Arizonans? Do you think that transportation is a block, or do you think that geography causes obstruction to some people?
All of those causes some problems for rural Arizona. Let's start over. Repeat the question, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm looking to say people need opportunities to go to college. How do you want to make those opportunities available?
Well, we have to make one of the things that I've been addressing is other opportunities, because living in rural Arizona, a lot of the kids are not going to go off to college, and so I've been working on an alternative, and I've been working to try to get some more funding back into the trades, because when you look at rural Arizona, the trades is a very good opportunity. When you look at the trades, the kids have an opportunity to have a very good living, a sustainable living within 4 years, and then the big thing about the trades is there's no debt after that. A lot of the construction companies and a lot of the unions around here are making it a lot easier for the youth to serve an apprenticeship.
Right. So sticking with education, what about charter schools? How do you feel, is there a place for charter schools? Do you like to see funding for charter schools? What do you think about the state ballot proposition that's coming forward?
There's probably a place for our charter schools, but when you live in rural Arizona, I just want to take this as an example. When you have let's take $1, and we have $1 that Phoenix gives for rural Arizona for our education. By the time that $1 gets up here because of the travel and the travel expense, now it's either 75 or maybe 70 cents. So we already lost that. And so when you look at that for these private schools, they're taking away those fundings, and so now that dollar that gets up here to Holbrook is now just down to 50 cents. When you have a rural area and we're fighting for funding, and we have to bus some of our kids in because we don't have a school out close to the border, there's an issue when you start paying for rich kids to go to school.
Right. So education is important to growing our homegrown Arizona talent, but we also sometimes need to attract out-of-state talent, out-of-area talent. What would you do to attract that kind of talent? What would you do for companies?
What would I do for companies? Well, right now we'd have to have some kind of incentives for companies to come to rural Arizona. Being the mayor of Holbrook, that's been one of our challenges, is trying to find industry to come to Holbrook. And so whether it be tax incentives or some kind of incentives to get them to come here, we have to find some kind of way to bring them here. Right. One of the things that's hard to bring jobs up here is our infrastructure. We have a bad. Our broadband is very lacking. Our roads are very lacking, and so we have a lot of work to do just before we get jobs up here.
So speaking of jobs, you have told me that you're a machinist, and I don't know what a machinist is. Can you tell me what that is and how that background brings something to yourself as a candidate?
A machinist is a very skilled mechanic. Not only is he a skilled mechanic, he can make things from a pump shaft. You name it, we can make it. Matter of fact, if we were to take this pin and set this pin down, I could probably make you this pin from being a machinist if I had the lathes and stuff. And so the trades have been very, very good, and so that's why I want to push the trades. And you ask how can the trades reflect over from me running for office. One of the things that I was sharing with people, I worked for the 3 major utility companies here within the state. I was assigned an area of the plant was the boiler feed pump, and in working on the boiler feed pump, it was a multi-million-dollar piece of equipment. Each company I worked for, I was assigned in that area. I worked on the turbine area. That was the most critical portion of the plant. I would come in there to work on the boiler feed pump. I'd have 2 tables that are 12 feet long, 4 feet across, bisqueen, lay out all the parts. and take this piece of equipment all the way apart and put it back together. And if APS and SRP and the other ones would entrust in me to go there and work on multi-million dollars of piece of equipment, that's what I'm asking the voters to do, to give me the opportunity to go down to the valley to work for them, to find out what's wrong and to fix it.
Mm-hmm. So you worked in the field of energy. There's a proposition that's going to be on the ballot addressing energy, Proposition 127, Clean Energy, which would ask for 50% of energy come from renewable resources by the year 2030. What are your feelings on that?
I think it's achievable, but there's some other things that I need to look at before I could go 100% on that. Because when I look at the clean energy, I still need to know how that's going to affect my area on jobs and opportunity for people in the area. Because when I look at the clean energy initiative, and I have coal-fired power plants, and I know that the combined cycle power plants do not run efficient up here, that gives me some concerns. Not only concerns that we're not going to have those power plants, we're not going to have those jobs. If we don't have those jobs, we're not going to have the tax structure as well. And so those are some of my concerns. And so that's why I wanted to know what goes along with this 127. Is there going to be some other opportunities here in the area to replace our power plant jobs?
Mm-hmm. So we've talked a little bit about energy now, and we should probably talk about water. It's such an important issue here in Arizona. The LD6 area specifically is forecast to have a huge growth in population. So water is a limited resource. So how can we balance the demand for that growth and not outrun our water supply?
That's going to be very challenging, because right now, when you just hearing the different options that are out there with people coming after our water, and so we got to be very selective on the companies on which we high water users that come into the area. For example, one of the high water users that's coming into the Navajo County area that has a lot of concern is a fracking company. Yeah. And we realize that the high use of water, we realize that that fracking taking place so close to the Colorado aquifer that runs right up underneath the Little Colorado, we're concerned about those aspects of it.
Right. So yes, there's a lot of diverse business, there's a lot of diverse people, it's a big area, so a lot of people to try to problem solve for. What do you see are your skills in problem solving?
Oh, that's another one. My skill in problem solving is I can work with anyone. That's been a plus. My mother calls it the Don Tyler. You go to the grocery store, you talk to everybody in the store, you just don't go in there for 5 minutes. And so I've always been the kind of guy who want to go and talk to someone and work across the aisle. A lot of things that are taking place, Ms. Kathy, that's right now, it's not going to be done by one party or another. It's going to take us all into work to get some of these taken care of. So
you've probably been meeting a lot of different types of people out there on the campaign trail. Got any favorite stories?
Oh yes, there. I think yeah. The one I want to share with you is about 3 weeks ago, being out on the campaign trail. Right now, I think I'm just around 65,000 miles, and one of the things that on the campaign trail that you realize you're on the campaign trail is a couple of months ago there was an event in Sedona, and so I pull up there in Sedona and getting ready to go to the event, and for the last 2 weeks my big toe was hurting, and I didn't understand why my big toe was hurting. I'm getting dressed and I'm going to put my shoes on and out of my trunk, and there's a big old hole in the bottom of my shoe that I've been walking on for the last 2 weeks. And so that explained to me why my big toe was hurting. And so we finish up that event, and so later on that evening, here it is, it's 5 o'clock, I have my hot root beer and my cold chicken, and I'm eating cold chicken and a hot root beer in my motel room, and next thing I know, I fell asleep, and it's 6 o'clock, and I'm like, what the heck? And so then I realized, oh, you're on the campaign. And so that was about the first time that it really hit me that I was on the campaign and then getting out there. But the thing about it, Miss Kathy, I've met so many great people, so many good stories. There was a young lady that was in Flagstaff that shared a story about the plight of her and her brother being DACA kids. To go down to other areas, and they're sharing their concerns of homelessness in their community. You go a little bit further, and you talk to people, and they're talking about the drug problems within their community, the lack of jobs. There's a community next to me. I was talking to a mother in Safeway, and she was talking about getting ready to move because her special needs son cannot get the services through the school. And so those are some of the things and some of the people that I meet out there. And so when being a mayor of a community, you see what's going on. And when you get out and you get into the larger picture, you start to see there's so much that's taking place within our community, within Arizona, that we need to address.
You just named a number of very pressing issues for people living in Arizona. What would you say are the top three from your own experience, from people that you've spoken with, and the three that you want to focus on? What would be your top three issues?
My top three would be education, jobs, and healthcare. When you look at jobs, education, and healthcare, when you look at all three, you can't have one without the other.
Right. Well, tell me a little bit about healthcare and the challenges that you see here and how you want to address them.
The challenges I see in healthcare, I'm just going to share a little bit with you. In October 2015, my best friend, my little brother Michael, in 1960, he took a title from me. November 7th, 1960, he took the title of little brother, and I don't want that title back. He took that title from me, and in October 2015, my brother calls me and he says, "Bob, hey, I'm not feeling well." And so he went up to Sholo to the hospital. An hour later, I get a phone call that he's being air-vacked down to Phoenix. They air-vacked him down to Phoenix. He was in heart failure. My brother was in total heart failure. When he gets down to the Mayo Clinic, and I get down there, and they're explaining to the family, they said if my brother's heart was pumping at 10% efficiency, it probably would have killed him because of the blood clot would have went up instead of down. The blood clot went into his kidney, ruined his kidney. Long story short, my brother ended up losing his home over health care. My brother lost his home over health care. My uncle always taught us, his nephews, if you work hard, you play by the rules, you can just do about anything you want in the world. My brother Michael and my other brothers, we did that. My brother Michael sent his daughter off to college. My brother was supervisor for ADOT. His wife was a supervisor for the junior college. And over his health, they end up losing their home in Holbrook. When you lose your home in Holbrook, there are 4,700 people. I am the mayor of Holbrook. Everybody knows what's going on. Healthcare is very important. But when you live in rural Arizona, I try to explain to people how the people of the rural Arizona come out for you. Everybody knew that my brother was in the hospital. My brother at that time was at the Mayo Clinic in ICU. He couldn't come up to get his belongings out of his house. The community came out and did that. The community came out, loaded up his house, took all his stuff down, and he's living with his daughter down in Phoenix.
How's he feeling?
Oh, it's been a challenge. It's been a challenge. When I say all lives matter, all lives matter. My brother received a heart from a gun violence victim. All lives matter. When I say all lives matter, my brother received a heart from a gun violent victim. The system worked from that check on the box on his driver's license, and it made it all the way.
Wow. Yeah.
And go ahead, ma'am.
Well, I just want to stick with healthcare for a moment and just say, when we talk about healthcare, we need to also include talking about mental and emotional health issues. And Arizona is among the top 10 states in suicide rates. Yavapai County has the highest rate in Arizona. As a legislator, what can you do to address the issues of mental health, suicide?
We got to get help out for people in mental health. We have to take that stigma away from mental health. We all suffer. We have to take that stigma away. We got to get people help. I can't. One from suicide is too many. One in my community is too many. We have to do something. We have to find funding for people. One of the things that I ran into is when I did need the system, it wasn't there for me because they told me I'd made too much money in the previous. And so some of these rules and regulations that we put behind for health care, we have to lessen them up because when someone comes forward, they need it at that time.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about some other statistics in which Arizona is not shining, unfortunately. In 2016, Arizona was in the top 10 states with the highest number of disenfranchised voters due to felonies. We had over 220,000 people whose voting rights were not restored. What do you think can be done to address the issue of restoring felony rights for voters?
We have to do something. We have to get out into the community.
Voting rights for felons.
Oh, for felons?
I said it backwards.
To restore their restore their rights.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What can you do to make sure that happens?
I'm not. Okay. We can enact laws to make it easier for them to have their rights restored.
Okay, great. So Arizona has a history as a progressive state. Actually, citizens' initiatives, have come forward. We gave women the right to vote before the nation did. Residents' rights as initiatives, though, currently, it seems that the legislature wants to make it more difficult for the citizens to put things on the ballot. What are your thoughts on that?
It's we the people. We can't make it harder for people to put things on the ballot. We need to listen to our constituents, and that's probably some of our problem that we're having right now. Is we're pushing that wedge so far between the normal people.
One of the initiatives that Arizonans were successful in putting forward was the Citizens Clean Elections. And now there's a proposition, one of the propositions on there that would amend the Citizens Clean Elections Commission. What do you think about that ballot?
I think that Proposition 306, to whether it's in the hands of one individual or another, I think that that's a bad idea. Because right now, I think they're trying to get it into the hands of the governor. I don't think that would be a good one.
Okay. So, sticking with the way that the legislature works, Arizona doesn't like it when the federal government preempts Arizona's state powers. Yet, the state of Arizona often preempts the powers of municipalities so that cities and towns can't enact their own laws, such as Bisbee wanted to ban plastic bags. Sedona wanted to regulate short-term rentals. Stopping cities from regulating themselves, what is your position on that trend of state preemption of local control?
States should let local governments have control because you're giving the cities the opportunity to work with their people of their community because you're listening to their voice instead of someone being down at the state dictating that. I think local control is very important for a community, yes.
Oh, so you would support local control at
yes.
the state level.
Mm-hmm.
And one other, we always hear at the League of Women Voters, we're very concerned about the Equal Rights Amendment. And so as a legislator, if you are elected, would you vote to have Arizona be the last state needed to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment?
We should have been the first.
What do you think about what's happening with women's rights generally at the moment?
Oh, I was reading here today, and when you look at some of the inequities in which are placed upon women, women of color, women of this, and you're looking at when you look at the comparison of a man getting $1 per dollar, and depends on who you are, from 80 cents down to 66 cents per women. I think that was in something I read in 2015. But yeah, we got to cross that, because when you look at if you're paying someone a lot less, let's say. Yeah, we got to change that, because I had all the figures and the numbers all broke down, but a single mother would have to pay a year more on her food because of her wage. She'd have to pay almost a half a year more on her rent, and there are just so many that you just keep getting behind because of the inequities in pay.
Yeah. So where does the campaign go from here? You're out on the trail. You told us that story. You've actually worn through your shoes. What is your strategy out there for the rest of the campaign?
My strategy for the rest of the campaign is to get my name out there and get Bobby Tyler out there, and to listen to the people of the district. That's been the biggest thing. A lot of events that we go to, we're always being asked to give our point. I want to turn a little spin on that. I need to know what their points are, because I need to know more about what's going on in my community. Some of the things that I'm going to do here through the rest of the campaign, I'm going to try to hit all the little communities. We have 5 weeks to do it, and so we're going to get out and about.
Great, great. So do you have a website? If we haven't asked a question that people are interested in, is there a way that they can reach you?
Yes, I have Bobby Tyler for rural Arizona, and then Tyler for Arizona as well. I have a Facebook page and also a Twitter page.
Oh. How are you finding the social media aspect of this? Oh. There's a big hack going on at the moment, so.
Oh yeah, there's a big hack going on at the moment. I'm finding the social media being, it's working. It's new, but it's been working.
Great.
Because you have an opportunity to get your message out to so many different people, and especially growing up in rural Arizona. Growing up in rural Arizona, when I say I'm a third generation Arizonan, I'm talking about being in that area for these 3 generations. My family has not moved away and came back. We've been here for 3 generations. And for being here in 3 generations, I have so many friends that are all across the U.S., and so we share so much. And so social media has really been a very good a tool. One of the tools that that one of my friends mentioned, growing up in a small town, they said, "Bobby, you're not running for office. Holbrook is running for office, and you're going to represent us."
And it's either a little bit of pressure or a lot of bit of pressure.
Oh, yes, that was a lot of pressure. But when you look at the need, when you look at that single mother and she talks about the needs for her son and trying to get him a good start, when you look at the health care, the opportunities for a high school student to go into the trades to get a good job, when you look at health care in our area, we need a lot. We need a lot.
We have just about a couple of minutes left, so do you have some ideas of what you want people to know about you, what you want them to take away from this chat that we've had? And thank you again for coming in. It's been a delight speaking with you.
Yes, well, thank you, Ms. Kathy. It's been a pleasure sitting here and chatting with you as well. Yes, there is something that I want to share with you. Mm-hmm. I want to share a story, because a lot of times I mentioned to you about my Don Tyler. I want to share that story about those shoes. Those shoes have a lot of meaning to me. My father was ill. My father was a very big man in the community. He was a police officer within our community. Everybody knew my dad and loved my dad. He talked 1,000,000 miles a minute, and he was just a big old gentle giant. My mom was 4'8". She was the tear in Bad Leroy Brown's eye. She ran the house. But when my dad was ill, he was in Texas. He lost his leg. I went to Texas to go visit my dad, and so when I was leaving the hospital, my dad told me, he said, "Bobby, I will never walk again. Take those shoes and throw them away." And I told my dad, I said, "Daddy, you will walk." And he told me, "No, son, I won't." And so as I started to leave the hospital, he called me back and told me, "Hey, I told you to get those shoes." And you know how we are. We're adults, and you can't tell me what to do. As I walked over there and picked up those shoes. And so I'm walking down the hall with those shoes. And so this was in 2007. I didn't throw those shoes away. Those are the shoes that I wear on my campaign. And the reason why I wear those shoes keeps me grounded. And it tells me I have big shoes to fill, but I know I never will.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's really been an interesting conversation with you. I thank you again for coming in. So Bobby Tyler, running for the House seat for Legislative District 6. Again, tell us a little bit again, where is the district? How big is this district?
Ooh, the district goes from the south rim of the Grand Canyon, from Tucson, all the way down to Tonto Basin, just south of Payson. East as far as Camp Verde, beautiful Camp Verde, and to the west as far as Holbrook.
So now we know why you wore those shoes out.
That's why I wear those shoes out, yes, ma'am.
So thank you again for coming. The League of Women Voters would like to remind everybody, please, that Election Day is right around the corner, November 6th. Ballots will go out in the mail starting on October 10th, so they'll be arriving shortly in your mailbox. We urge you to fill out your ballots as soon as possible and turn them in. We recently heard a story of about somewhere between 250 to 300 voters whose ballots did not make it in by the election deadline, and those votes were not counted. Your vote needs to count. Some of these races, we all know that there's a governor's race, we all know that there's a U.S. Senate race, but some of these lower ballot races are determined by literally a handful of voters. Your vote needs to be one of those. Make it count. Vote early. If you need to vote in person, you can drop your ballots off, or you can vote at your local vote centers. We want to remind everybody what's on the ballot. There are 5 statewide propositions that you need to be paying attention to, as well as look at the bottom of your ballot, because there are often local ballot issues in your municipality. There might be something like a school budget override, or there may be a fire board election. Read your whole ballot, vote your whole ballot. Your vote counts. Your voice is your power. Make it heard. Again, Kathy Kinsella, League of Women Voters, Greater Verde Valley. Bobby Tyler, running for Arizona State Legislative District 6. Thank you very much for joining us.